The glass shattered against the marble floor, crimson wine spreading like blood across white stone. Kang Tae-Shin didn't flinch. He simply stared at his phone, his thumb hovering over a name he'd searched 1,000 times but never called. Not until tonight. Tae-Shin. Amina's voice cut through the silence, steady but strained. Are you even listening to me? He looked up, his dark eyes meeting hers for barely a second before returning to the screen. I heard you, then answer me. Where were you tonight? Business. The word came out flat, rehearsed, empty. Amina Okafor stood in the doorway of their penthouse living room, her tall frame wrapped in a silk robe, her natural hair pulled back from her face. She'd been beautiful when they met, back when Tae-Shin had nothing but ambition and borrowed money. She was still beautiful now, but he rarely looked long enough to notice. 8 years of marriage, 1 son, and somewhere along the way he'd stopped seeing her. Business, she repeated, tasting the bitterness of the lie. The kind that leaves lipstick on your collar? Tae-Shin's jaw tightened. He set his phone face down on the marble countertop and finally turned to face her fully. Don't start. Don't start. Amina laughed, but there was no humor in it. Joon waited 3 hours for you tonight. 3 hours, Tae-Shin. He had a school presentation. He asked for you specifically. I'll make it up to him. That's what you said last time. And the time before that. She stepped closer, her bare feet silent on the cold floor. He's 7 years old. He shouldn't have to beg for his father's attention. Tae-Shin's phone buzzed. His eyes flicked toward it instinctively and Amina saw it. The slight softening in his expression, the way his shoulders relaxed just a fraction. She'd seen that look before, but never directed at her. Not anymore. Who is she? Amina's voice dropped to a whisper. No one. He grabbed his phone and headed toward his study. I have work to finish. Tae-Shin. The study door closed with a quiet click that felt louder than any slammed door ever could. Amina stood alone in the sprawling living room, surrounded by luxury that meant nothing. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering Seoul skyline, every light a reminder of the empire her husband had built. An empire he'd die for, kill for, but somehow couldn't stay present for. Not for her, not for their son. She walked to Joon's bedroom and pushed the door open gently. Her son lay curled under his blankets, his small body facing the wall. She knew he wasn't asleep. Baby? She sat on the edge of his bed, her hand resting on his shoulder. Joon turned slowly. His eyes, so much like his father's, were red-rimmed. He didn't come. I know, sweetheart. He wanted to, but something came up. Something always comes up. Joon's voice cracked. He doesn't care about me. That's not true. Then why does he care more about her? Amina froze. What? Joon sat up, pulling his knees to his chest. I heard him on the phone last week. He said her name. He said he'd do anything to keep her safe. His small hands twisted the blanket. Who is she, Mom? Why does Dad love her more than us? Amina felt her heart fracture, each crack spreading wider. She pulled Joon close, holding him tight while her mind raced. She'd suspected for months, seen the signs she'd tried to ignore. The late nights, the distant stares, the way Tae-Shin touched his phone like it held something precious. But hearing it from her son, knowing Joon had been carrying this pain alone, made it real in a way she couldn't deny anymore. Your father loves you, she whispered against Joon's hair. Never doubt that. But even as she said it, she wondered if love without presence was really love at all. Tae-Shin stood in his study, staring at the message on his screen. I need to see you. It's urgent. 5 words from a woman he'd loved a lifetime ago, and his world tilted. Jian. His first love. The woman he'd left behind when he'd chosen this life. This path. This darkness. He'd convinced himself it was over. That marrying Amina had been the right choice. The smart choice. Amina was strong, adaptable, willing to stand beside him despite the blood on his hands. But Jian had been light. She'd been laughter and innocence and everything he'd lost when he'd taken his first life at 19. He typed back quickly. Where? The response came immediately. Our old place. Tomorrow night. Please, Tae-Shin. I have no one else. He should have said no. Should have deleted the message, blocked the number, focused on the family sleeping down the hall. Instead, he wrote, I'll be there. The next morning, Amina woke to an empty bed, nothing unusual. She went through the motions, making breakfast, getting Joon ready for school, smiling when she wanted to scream. Tae-Shin appeared briefly, grabbing coffee and barely glancing at either of them before his phone rang, and he disappeared again. Dad, Joon called out, can you drive me to school today? Not today, son. I have a meeting. You always have meetings. Tae-Shin paused at the door, guilt flashing across his face so quickly Amina almost missed it. This weekend. We'll do something this weekend. You said that last weekend. Joon. Amina's voice held a warning. Let your father go. Tae-Shin left without another word. In the car, Joon stared out the window silently. Amina glanced at him in the rearview mirror, her heart aching. Want to stop for ice cream after school? Only if Dad comes. Baby, I don't want ice cream without Dad. Joon's voice was small, defeated. I don't want anything without Dad. Amina pulled into the school parking lot, blinking back tears. She turned in her seat to face him. Your father is dealing with some complicated things right now. Is it my fault? What? No. Joon, no, baby, none of this is your fault. Then why doesn't he want to be around me? The question hung in the air, heavy and horrible. Amina unbuckled her seatbelt and climbed into the back seat, pulling her son into her arms. Listen to me. Your father's distance has nothing to do with you. You are the best thing that ever happened to him. To us. Don't ever forget that. But as Joon walked into school, his small shoulders hunched with a burden no child should carry, Amina knew words weren't enough anymore. That evening, Tae-Shin left the penthouse at 7. He'd showered, changed into clothes that didn't smell like gun smoke and expensive cologne, and grabbed his keys without explanation. Where are you going? Amina asked from the couch where she'd been reading. I told you, business. What kind of business requires you to shower and change first? His eyes flashed dangerously. The kind that keeps this roof over your head. I never asked for this roof, Tae-Shin. I asked for you. You have me. Do I? She stood, setting her book aside. Because it feels like I have a ghost. Someone who looks like my husband but has already left in every way that matters. Amina, I don't have time for this. You never have time. Not for me, not for Joon, but somehow you have time for her. The temperature in the room dropped. Tae-Shin's face went carefully blank, the expression he wore when interrogating enemies. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult me by lying. I've stood by you through everything. The violence, the danger, the blood you can't quite wash off your hands. I've never asked you to be someone you're not. But I won't compete with a ghost from your past. There's no competition. Then who is she? Tae-Shin moved toward the door. I'll be back late. Don't wait up. He left before Amina could respond, and she stood alone in the silence, feeling the foundation of her marriage crumbling beneath her feet. The old coffee shop hadn't changed. Same cracked leather booths, same smell of burnt espresso and old paper. Tae-Shin slid into the corner booth where Jian waited, her delicate hands wrapped around a cup she hadn't touched. She looked up, and he felt time collapse. 15 years disappeared. She was still beautiful, still fragile in a way that made him want to protect her from the world. From himself. Tae-Shin. Her voice broke. Thank you for coming. What's wrong? I'm in trouble. Serious trouble. She reached across the table, her fingers trembling against his palm. I borrowed money from the wrong people. They're threatening me. I didn't know who else to call. How much? 2,000,001. I tried to pay them back, but the interest keeps growing and I can't. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm so sorry. I know I have no right to ask you for anything after all these years, but please. I'm scared. Tae-Shin felt the old protectiveness surge through him. This was Jian, the girl who'd held his hand through his father's funeral, who'd believed he could be better than the streets that raised him. Before he'd proven her wrong, I'll handle it. The words came easily, too easily. Give me the names. I can't let you hurt anyone because of me. I won't hurt anyone. I'll just make them understand that you're under my protection." He squeezed her hand gently. "It'll be okay. I promise. You always kept your promises to me." She smiled through her tears, and Tae-Shin felt something stir in his chest that he hadn't felt in years. "I missed you. Jian, I know. You're married. You have a family. I'm not trying to complicate your life. I just needed help, and you're the only person I trust." He should have pulled his hand away, should have established boundaries, paid her debt, and walked out. Instead, he said, "I missed you too." They talked for 2 hours. About old times, old dreams, the life they'd imagined before reality had carved them into different people. When Tae-Shin finally left, the coffee shop felt warm in a way his penthouse never did. He came home at midnight to find Amina still awake, sitting in the dark living room. "Did you sleep with her?" Her voice was calm, which somehow made it worse. "No, but you wanted to." Tae-Shin didn't answer. The silence was answer enough. "Who is she, Tae-Shin? What does she have that I don't?" "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" "Because from where I'm standing, you're choosing someone else over your wife and son." "Make it make sense." He moved to pour himself a drink, his back to her. "Her name is Jian. We were together before I got into this life, before everything got complicated. And now she's back. She needed help, and you went running." Amina stood, moving closer. "Did you ever love me, Tae-Shin? Or was I just the convenient choice when you couldn't have her?" "That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair." Her voice finally rose, years of suppressed frustration breaking through. "I loved you when you had nothing. I stood by you when everyone said I was crazy. I gave up my family, my country, my entire life to be here with you. And you can't even look at me without thinking about her. You don't understand. Then help me understand. Tell me what she has that makes you forget you have a son who cries himself to sleep waiting for you." Tae-Shin slammed his glass down, the sound explosive. "She never asked me to be someone I'm not. She didn't demand my time or my attention or my soul. With her, I could just be—" He stopped, but the damage was done. Amina's face went very still. "So that's what I am to you? A demand? An obligation? Amina, get out. This is my house. Then I'll leave." She walked toward the bedroom, her spine straight despite the tremor in her voice. "But when I go, Tae-Shin, I'm taking our son, and we won't be coming back. You're overreacting." She turned at the doorway, and the look in her eyes made him take a step back. "I'm protecting my son from growing up watching his father choose everyone except him. If you can't be the man we need, then we'll find a way to live without you." The bedroom door closed. Tae-Shin told himself she didn't mean it, that in the morning they'd talk and things would settle. They always did. He was wrong. Over the next 3 weeks, Tae-Shin saw Jian 6 more times. He told himself it was about her safety, about making sure the debt was handled, about protecting an old friend. But the truth was harder to ignore. Being with Jian made him feel young again, unburdened by the weight of his empire and the expectations of his family. She didn't look at him with disappointment or hurt. She looked at him like he was still the boy she'd loved before blood had stained his hands. Meanwhile, his marriage dissolved in slow motion. Amina stopped asking where he was going, stopped waiting up, stopped reaching for him in bed. The silence between them grew dense and impenetrable. Joon stopped asking when Dad would come home. Tae-Shin noticed, vaguely, that something was shifting, that the penthouse felt different, emptier somehow, but he was too caught up in his own escape to pay attention until it was too late. The breaking point came on a Thursday. Joon had a piano recital, his first real performance. Amina had reminded Tae-Shin 3 times, but when the day came, Jian called in tears. Someone had followed her home. She was terrified, alone, needed him. Tae-Shin made his choice. He arrived at the recital hall 40 minutes late. The performance was over. Parents mingled in the lobby, congratulating their children. He spotted Amina and Joon by the door, his son still in his little suit, his face blank. "I'm sorry," Tae-Shin said, slightly out of breath. "Traffic was—" "Don't." Amina's voice was ice. "Don't you dare lie to him again." "Mom, it's okay," Joon said quietly. "Can we just go home?" "Joon, I wanted to be here, but you weren't." His son looked up at him, and Tae-Shin saw something terrible in those young eyes. Acceptance, resignation, the look of a child who'd stopped hoping. "It's fine, Dad. I'm used to it." The words hit harder than any bullet ever had. Son. Mrs. Kang. A teacher approached, smiling warmly at Amina. "Joon was absolutely wonderful tonight. You must be so proud." "I am," Amina said, pulling Joon close. "So incredibly proud." The teacher glanced at Tae-Shin, recognition and something like pity crossing her face. "Well, it's lovely that you have such a supportive mother, Joon. That's what really matters." They left. Amina didn't say a word in the car, didn't acknowledge Tae-Shin's attempts at conversation. At home, she put Joon to bed and then disappeared into their bedroom. When Tae-Shin entered an hour later, she was packing. "What are you doing? What does it look like?" She folded a sweater methodically, her movements precise and controlled. "I'm leaving." "You're not leaving. Watch me." He grabbed her wrist, spinning her to face him. "Amina, stop. Let's talk about this." "Talk?" She yanked her hand free, and for the first time since he'd known her, he saw genuine hatred in her eyes. "You want to talk now? After you chose her over your son's first recital? After you looked Joon in the eye and broke his heart again? It was an emergency. It's always an emergency with her. She calls, you run. She needs you, you drop everything. Meanwhile, your actual family is here, falling apart, and you don't even notice. That's not fair. You keep saying that, but you never explain why. Why is it unfair for me to expect my husband to keep his promises? Why is it unfair for your son to want his father at important moments?" She turned back to the suitcase, tears streaming down her face now. "I can't do this anymore, Tae-Shin. I can't compete with a memory. I can't watch Joon break a little more every time you choose her. I'm not choosing anyone. That's the problem." She zipped the suitcase closed with shaking hands. "You're not choosing us. You're not choosing your family. So I'm making the choice for you. I'm choosing Joon's well-being over this marriage. Amina, please." Desperation crept into his voice. "Just give me time to fix this. Time. I gave you 8 years, Tae-Shin. 8 years of waiting, hoping, believing you'd wake up and see what you have. I'm done waiting. Where will you go? Somewhere you can't find us." She pulled the suitcase off the bed. "My lawyer will contact you about divorce proceedings. I'm not asking for anything, except what's fair for Joon. You can keep your empire, your money, your precious first love. We just want peace. You can't take my son. I can, and I will. Because I'm the parent who shows up. I'm the one who knows his favorite foods, his fears, his dreams. I'm the one who tucks him in and wipes his tears when you break his heart." She moved to the door, pausing to look back at him. "You want to know the saddest part? Joon would forgive you in a heartbeat if you just chose him, just once, but you won't, because that would mean giving up the fantasy of who you were with her. Amina, one day you'll look for us, and we won't be there. And when that day comes, Tae-Shin, I hope you remember this moment. I hope you remember that you had everything, and you threw it away for a ghost." She walked out. Tae-Shin stood frozen, his mind racing. She was angry, upset, emotional. She'd cool down, come back, they'd work it out, but the next morning, they were gone. Amina and Joon's belongings were missing. Clothes, photos, Joon's toys, all gone. The rooms looked the same but felt hollow, like a stage set after the actors had left. On the kitchen counter, Tae-Shin found divorce papers and a letter. He opened it with trembling hands. "Tae-Shin, I don't expect you to understand this now. Maybe you never will. But I need you to know that I loved you. I loved you when we met, when we married, even in these final months when you were barely present. I loved you enough to stay longer than I should have. But love isn't enough when it's only one person fighting. Joon deserves better. He deserves a father who chooses him, who sees him, who shows up. Since you can't be that person, I'm removing us from the equation. Don't look for us. Let us heal. Maybe one day when Joon is older, he'll decide if he wants you in his life. Until then, goodbye. Amina." Tae-Shin read it 3 times. Then he called her phone. It went straight to voicemail. He called again. And again. Nothing. She'll come back, he told himself. She's just trying to scare me. Days passed. Then a week. The penthouse echoed with absence. Tae-Shin went through the motions, meetings, deals, the endless dance of maintaining his empire. But at night, the silence crushed him. He'd walk past Joon's empty bedroom and feel something crack inside. He'd see Amina's side of the closet, cleared out except for a single scarf she'd forgotten, and smell her perfume still lingering in the fabric. He told himself he was fine, that he'd been alone before and survived, that they were the ones losing out, not him. But then he'd come home to darkness and remember Joon asking, "Why does Dad love her more than us?" And the cracks would spread wider. 2 weeks after they left, Jian called. "Can I see you? I want to thank you properly for everything you've done." Tae-Shin agreed. They met at an expensive restaurant, and she looked beautiful, grateful, everything he'd imagined. But when she reached for his hand across the table, he felt nothing. "Tae-Shin, are you okay? My wife left me." The words came out flat. "Took my son." "Oh." Jian withdrew her hand. "I'm so sorry. Is it because of—" "Yes, I never meant to cause problems in your marriage, didn't you?" He looked at her directly, seeing clearly for the first time in months. "You knew I was married. You knew I had a son. But you kept calling, kept needing me, kept pulling me away from them. I needed help. You offered. I did. And I lost everything because of it." He stood, pulling cash from his wallet and tossing it on the table. "Your debt is paid. Your problem is handled. Don't call me again. Tae-Shin." But he was already walking away. The empire began to crumble slowly, then all at once. Without Amina as his anchor, Tae-Shin made reckless decisions, trusted the wrong people, ignored warning signs. His second-in-command betrayed him, stealing territory and allies. A rival family saw weakness and attacked. Money that should have been laundered properly got seized. Deals fell through. Tae-Shin realized too late that Amina had been more than his wife. She'd been his strategist, his conscience, the person who'd grounded him when the violence threatened to consume him completely. Without her, he was just another brutal man in a brutal world, and there was always someone more brutal waiting. 6 months after they left, Tae-Shin sat in his penthouse surrounded by the ruins of his empire. Half his territory was gone. Most of his allies had switched sides. The authorities were circling, building cases he didn't have the energy to evade, and he was alone, completely, devastatingly alone. Jian had left Seoul 2 months ago, moved to Busan, sent him a brief thank you text, and disappeared from his life as quickly as she'd re-entered it. The woman he'd sacrificed everything for hadn't even stayed to watch him fall. He started searching then, hired private investigators, called in favors, spent money he couldn't afford to spend. It took 8 months, but finally, he found them. Amina and Joon were living in a small coastal town 3 hours from Seoul. She'd taken her maiden name back, gotten a job teaching at a university. Joon was enrolled in a local school, reportedly doing well, making friends. They were thriving, without him. Tae-Shin waited another month, gathering his courage. Then, on a Saturday morning, he drove to their town, found their apartment building, sat in his car across the street for an hour before Amina and Joon emerged. His son had grown. Taller, his face less round, more defined. He was laughing at something Amina said, carefree in a way Tae-Shin had never seen before. And Amina, she looked lighter somehow. The tension that had lived in her shoulders for years was gone. She looked happy. They looked happy. Tae-Shin got out of the car. His legs felt weak, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Amina." She froze, turned. The happiness drained from her face, replaced by something harder. "What are you doing here? I needed to see you. Both of you." Joon pressed against his mother's side, eyeing Tae-Shin warily. "Like a stranger, like a threat. How did you find us? Does it matter?" "Yes." Her voice was steel. "It matters because I asked you to let us go. I asked for one thing, Tae-Shin, and you couldn't even respect that. I know, and I'm sorry." He took a step forward, stopping when Amina instinctively pulled Joon closer. "I'm sorry for everything. for choosing wrong, for being absent, for taking you both for granted. I was an idiot, and I lost everything that mattered. You can't just show up here and expect forgiveness. I don't. I'm not asking for anything except a chance to talk. 5 minutes. Please. Amina looked down at Joon, who shook his head. I don't want to talk to him, Mom. The words gutted Tae-Shin. Son, I'm not your son. You said sons matter to their fathers, but I didn't matter to you. That's not true. Joon, you mattered more than anything. Then why did you leave us? Joon's voice rose, tears spilling over. Why did you choose her? Why weren't we enough? Tae-Shin fell to his knees on the pavement, not caring who saw. You were enough. You are enough. I was the one who wasn't. I was broken and stupid, and I thought... His voice cracked. I thought the past could save me from the present, but the only things that mattered were right in front of me, and I was too blind to see... Tae-Shin. Amina's voice softened slightly. You can't do this. You can't show up after a year and expect us to fall back into your life. I know. I needed you to know that I'm sorry, that I see it now. Everything I lost, everything I destroyed. He looked at Joon, tears streaming down his own face now. I'm sorry I wasn't the father you deserved. I'm sorry I made you feel like you didn't matter. You matter more than anything in this world, and I was too caught up in my own mess to show you. Joon wiped his eyes. Do you still love her? No, I haven't talked to her in months, but you loved her more than us. I thought I did, but love isn't about old memories or fantasies. It's about showing up. It's about being present. It's about choosing the people who choose you. He looked at Amina. Your mother chose me every single day for 8 years, and I took that for granted. I won't make that mistake again. It's too late, Tae-Shin, Amina said quietly. We've built a new life, a good life, and I can't risk Joon's happiness on the chance that you've changed. I have changed. I'm not asking you to believe me. Just give me a chance to prove it. How? However you want. Supervised visits, letters, phone calls, whatever you're comfortable with. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes. Just please don't cut me off completely. Amina was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, I need to think about it. That's fair, and even if I agree, it's on my terms. You don't get to show up whenever you want. You don't get to disrupt our lives because you're suddenly ready to be present. I understand. She took Joon's hand. We'll talk, but not today. Today you go home and think about whether you're really ready to do the work. Because if you commit to this and then disappear again, you'll destroy what little chance you have left. I won't disappear. Not again. Amina nodded and led Joon away. But after a few steps, Joon turned back. Dad? Yes? I'm glad you're sorry. But sorry doesn't fix everything. I know, son, but it's a start. They left. Tae-Shin sat on the curb and cried like he hadn't cried since he was a boy, cried for the years he'd wasted, the love he'd thrown away, the son he'd neglected. When the tears finally stopped, he pulled out his phone and called his lawyer. I need to sell everything, he said. The penthouse, the businesses, all of it. Liquidate it and set up trust funds for Amina and Joon. Make sure they're taken care of no matter what happens to me. Sir, are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He hung up and looked at the apartment building where his family lived. His family that he'd abandoned, that had learned to survive without him. They might never forgive him, might never let him back into their lives fully. But he'd spend the rest of his life trying to earn back what he'd lost. He'd ruled the underworld with an iron fist, had built an empire on blood and fear, had controlled everything except what mattered most, his own heart. And in the end, the crown meant nothing when there was no one left to share it with. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. This story is a reminder that the people who love us through our worst aren't guaranteed to stay forever. Please subscribe if you want more stories that dig deep into the consequences of our choices. Drop a comment below telling me, have you ever lost someone because you took them for granted? And if this resonated with you, hit that like button. Your support means everything. Until next time, remember, love ignored becomes love lost.